Welcome back, class. Professor Shambler here. If you're a new or familiar face and simply don't want to hear me yap about need versus want gachas, head over to the timestamp you see here. That will take you straight to the guide part of the video. And don't forget to subscribe and enjoy. Hey class, does anyone remember what a need gacha is?
Fortnite?
As I've taught you all before, a need gacha is a gacha that is typically not very generous to its player base. This usually means currencies or other materials are hard to come by. They also tend to have very restrictive event time gates and a poor RNG system coupled with a lack of some form of soft pity. Need gachas also tend to lack something very important: player agency, which means that content is designed in a way that incentivizes players to pull frequently to keep up at the fear of missing out. Ultimately, these games are slot machines disguised as a game. In these gachas, the free-to-play player should focus more on what they need to pull versus what they want to pull. Now it's time for want gachas. A want gacha is a gacha that is generous enough to allow players to pull however they see fit. Soft pity functions when pulling for characters and a steady supply of free currency helps facilitate this. Want gachas also provide simplified and universal currency systems to make acquiring materials more streamlined for the player.
Like Super Smash Bros.
Or it's a game that offers gameplay with high player agency. This allows the player to pull for who they want and use in any content provided. Does anyone remember what player agency means?
Oh, I know what player agency is. Player agency is gameplay that gives you freedom of movement, like having the ability to dodge, parry, and weave, which allows the player to tackle any enemy provided they have the skill to do so.
But Professor, both games we'll be using as examples today have high player agency. How will we differentiate what would be the need gacha and what would be the want gacha?
A fine question. We will be focusing on the endgame and investment strategies for today's lesson. Now class, before we move on to our next segment, we will need to welcome our newest student. This is our new foreign exchange student. And what a coincidence. They happen to know Honkai?
Honkai Impact 3rd.
It's time for a class takeover, baby!
Professor Shambler is right. With 2.0 releasing less than a year ago, Honkai Impact 3rd is now a need gacha, and Honkai Impact 3rd is not generous with its currency.
There's a million types of currency. You even need a type of currency to roll for artifacts, instead of grinding them with universal energy like the rest of the Hoyo games.
As well as materials being harder to acquire.
You get 3 a day for talent level up materials, and you gotta use different currencies if you want to keep on grinding. Also, it can get very expensive, so...
It even has time gates.
Except for the character story events that were released after 2.0.
And a poor RNG system that lacks a soft pity.
I mean, there is a guarantee, but you gotta grind 280 gems per roll to always reach that hard pity.
But the biggest detriment to Honkai Impact 3 being a need gacha is the release of the new Astro Ring mechanic introduced in Part 2.
It is specifically a mechanical buff that is given to the 2.0 and future characters exclusively, except for Kiana, her finality. However, it includes massive buffs for your damage output, even when it's not active.
However, Hoyo has shown with the Hershira finality that they're willing to introduce the Astro Ring mechanic to older units. Team building is simplified in Part 2. Players simply need to match a main DPS of the right element alongside 2 supporting characters from the roster to achieve optimal damage numbers,
making brute forcing that late game content practically undoable.
As a common trend with several other gacha titles, especially Hoyo games, speed is the name of the game.
Why waste time dodging when you can just kill them faster? And don't even think about trying to solo those health sponges.
To achieve maximum rewards, horizontal investment is pushed upon free-to-play players in order to have a wide array of DPS and support characters and matching types. Due to the massive amount of power creep, players need characters from Part 2 in order to get the universal exclusive buffs, leading to Part 1 characters being a trap. And did I mention that the endgame content is a 3-tier system that gets harder and harder and harder?
Is it a bad time to mention that Honkai Impact 3rd is also pushing you to vertically invest at the same time? Because if you don't get the 5-star tailor-made weapons for your 5-star units, they will get a massive damage loss. This has been prevalent even before Part 2.0.
And thus, this cements Honkai Impact 3rd as a power treadmill and a need gacha.
As predatory as Honkai Impact 3rd is, that does not take away from the fact that it's still a great game. From the smooth gameplay to the amazing lore and the...
They've spread here too. Give us a sec to clean up.
Okay, now that that's over, does anyone know what we're going to use as an example for a want gacha? I'll give you a hint. It's another hoyoverse title.
Oh! Tears of Thymus, because you really just pull for husbandos you want in order to progress the...
No. Our second hoyoverse example is the newest title, Zenless Zone 0. This gacha boasts generous amounts of free currency, allowing players to pull without spending fairly easily. Leveling and powering up your characters has been made easy with its systems to craft disk drives and to craft and uncraft character and talent materials. This gives the player more opportunities to power up while spending less energy. The energy source in question is also universal and continues to build up even if it has maxed out while the player is offline. This gacha's banner pities are similar to another hoyoverse title, Honkai Star Rail. Both have the same soft and hard pity systems in place. The player has a 50% chance to acquire the banner character and a 75% chance to acquire the banner weapon. And to top things off, ZZZ also shares its currency prices with its brothers Honkai Star Rail and Genshin Impact, making Honkai Impact 3rd the more expensive Ugly Duckling. Honkai Impact 3rd Ugly Duckling. In contrast to Honkai Impact 3rd's simplified meta and team building, ZZZ has diverse roles and multiple team building options available for players to use. Enemy resistance to a given element is the only real consideration when team building. This allows the player to experience combat freely with the characters they want to use, meaning you can solo with a favorite as well.
Yeah! Where my Billy Chads at? Editor Unlucky here. In the middle of making this video, 1.4 released and Billy has now been officially nerfed.
The only real restriction in team building is if the player wants to get the most out of their cybernetic pals, the Bangbu. These little guys are added to a team usually as a form of utility or added damage. However, many have team building restrictions to activate certain abilities. This includes having multiple of the same element, faction team members, or a specific role present, or you can simply pick the cutest one. Speaking of the cutest one, ZZZ allows and incentivizes the player to roll for a desired husbando or waifu, and invest vertically on that single character. Partnered with the freedom of team building, Zenless Zone 0 is indeed a want gacha.
As I've said before, being an F2P in any gacha is tough. Remember that whales and big content creators spend money to clear content quicker, whereas a real F2P player will spend their time. Knowing the difference in investment types when playing a gacha game will help you save your time and your money. This guide will cover 2 gacha investment types and how to use them to navigate any gacha now or in the future. You might ask, what is horizontal investment? Horizontal investment is pulling from many characters to create a large and diverse roster. This usually means the F2P player will not have enough currency to acquire duplicates or weapons. In doing so, the general power level of each character is low, but with this investment type, the player will be able to keep up with constant meta changes and grants the player access to the current and future in-game content. In ZZZ, this means pulling for characters that benefit from the Shiyu defense buffs. Another advantage of having a large roster means having a lot of choice in gameplay. This can reduce things like burnout or ease content droughts. However, having a large roster means putting additional time and resources into character building. Another issue with horizontal investment can be found in the exchange of currency to acquire a character versus the currency gained from the in-game content. In ZZZ, Shiyu Defense offers about 5 rolls per cycle. This means the F2P player can acquire about 10 rolls per patch. When considering the price per character on average, 10 rolls is not a worthwhile endeavor, meaning horizontal investment in most cases will feel like a treadmill. With careful planning, horizontal investment is best used when playing a need gacha, like Honkai Star Rail, or other gachas with low or no player agency, as this will help the player keep up with meta and reduce the fear of missing out. Vertical investment is the opposite of horizontal investment, meaning the player will pool for very few characters, but will acquire extra copies of said characters and their signature weapons. This strategy aims at min-maxing a single or handful of characters, trading a diverse roster for individual power. With enough patience and willpower to save, an F2P player can easily maximize a favorite or a few favorites. However, this strategy is not advised for need gachas, as characters, no matter how powerful, will be power crept in the future. As mentioned previously, Zenless Zone Zero has the potential to have much of its content played and beaten by a solo character. This means ignoring Shiyu buffs and simply rolling for a favorite and going all in. The notion being that the power level of additional copies and maximized gear will brute force the content. In essence, this solves a problem of gacha games feeling like a treadmill and gets rid of the nasty fear of missing out. So, as a F2P player, vertically investing into the character you want allows you to fully invest into your fun. And remember folks, games are meant to be fun. Let's go.
Welcome to the last segment of the video. Here I will showcase teams that would fit into the characters you might want to run if you don't have the courage to solo. This guide will be mostly about teams for a specific DPS, as other roles will fit around most DPS and team building. This includes Bangbu combos and character passive requirements to unleash their full potential. On-field anomaly DPS like Jane Doe and Yanagi are the perfect fit for a player who wishes to get the most out of them playing their favorite. Their playstyle requires the player to spend as much time on the field as possible, building up the anomaly gauge over and over again. This means swapping only over to your supports for assists and buffs. Rena, Seth, Lucy, and Caesar only take a few seconds on field to activate their buffs, making them perfect teammates for on-field anomaly DPS. Jane Doe benefits the most from having either another anomaly character or a PubSec officer in the team. Seth is a terrific support in the form of a defense character, activating the faction bonus as well as providing a shield and an anomaly proficiency buff. Another PubSec officer you may want to consider is King Yi, as Jane Doe can make use of the stun multiplier to great effect. Jane Doe works best with Bangbu to build up anomaly of a different element. Keep in mind that these Bangbu require 2 team members to share the same element. Plugbu and Rocketbu are 2 that work well with Jane Doe. Off-field anomaly DPS like Bernice specialize in building up anomaly for disorder teams, or more niche cases like applying Burn to activate the 4-piece bonus of Inferno Metal. These characters have good personal damage, while also functioning similarly to a traditional off-field support. Best paired with an on-field anomaly DPS like Jane Doe or Nagi, these teams are great for players who are fans of multiple characters and wish to have them share the spotlight. In the case of playing Bernice with Soldier 11, you will need to have either Caesar or Lucy on the team to activate her passive. Both of these characters are helpful at providing buffs, and in the case of Caesar, a shield and a buff, allowing Soldier 11 to do the most damage against burning enemies. Rocketbu provides extra fire anomaly buildup for the team, while Red Mochas provides high damage and grouping. In Disorder teams, Bernice's passive is taken care of simply having another anomaly unit on the team, making her a very flexible choice for the future. Bang Boo that provide elemental anomaly buildup are the best for Disorder teams. Grace, despite being somewhere in the middle of an on-field and off-field anomaly DPS, has an off-field niche of applying shock for Anton teams. Her electricity anomaly application is perfect at activating the 4-piece bonus of Thunder Metal and Anton's passive, called Teamwork. Not only that, but Grace naturally activates her and Anton's passives by being on the same element and faction. Plug Boo will be the Bang Boo of choice for this team for his electric anomaly buildup. You can also use Safety Boo for lore accuracy. Pure DPS characters are simple as they get. Do big damage by Unga Bunga, but the best way to exploit that damage is with a stunner. This means attack characters typically are less present than their stun counterparts, which can be disappointing for some if you expect them to be on field for long periods of time. However, they excel at burst damage by combining stun multiplier windows and the buffs of a support of your choosing. When building a team around an attack character, it's best to pair them up with a teammate of a similar element to activate Bang Boo bonuses and inflict extra anomaly. Ellen Jo pairs best with a stun character, Lycoan. Her passive is cover up by Lycoan's faction and element, meaning the support slot is much more flexible. Her best support option is Sokaku. However, Lucy or Caesar works too. Shark Boo is your best bet for extra ice anomaly buildup. However, Butler Boo can help with energy problems if necessary, while also having the drip. Julian uses Nicole for her ether damage buff as well as her defense shred. She also activates her passive off of Nicole being a support, bringing up the stun roll to a more free-to-play friendly character like Anby. However, King Yi is her best stunner by a large margin. Rozonabu is best in slot for being a grouper as well as additional ether anomaly buildup. It's hard to beat a mini Nicole, but if you're running King Yi, consider using Officer Tui, because all cops are baddies. As mentioned previously, Soldier 11 wants a similar element to her for her passive fire damage buff against stunned enemies, so the right stunner for her would be Kaleda, Lighter, or someone with a big daze multiplier like Ben Bigger. The third party member is more flexible, but Lucy being a similar element works well. With this team, Rocket Boo is the best bet for your additional fire anomaly buildup and melting steel beams. Nekomata and Billy work best with their own faction. This means Anby and Nicole are their perfect teammates, and extremely free to play too. Add $1 million in, and you get a budget and lore accurate team. Additionally, Caesar is also great for both as she shares the same element and provides stun, buffs, and a shield. However, keep in mind she is a limited character and is less free-to-play friendly. As we talked about in the off-field anomaly DPS section, Anton needs Grace for shock to activate his passive and his disk drive set. King Yi being electric is his best stun option, while also providing a damage buff if her W engine is equipped. A more free-to-play option can be Anby or even Ben Bigger. Plug Boo and Safety Boo are still your best Bang Boos. And lastly, the Baby Corn wants Lycoan as her stunner, as they share the same faction enabling both passives despite no elemental synergy. Her passive, Cleanup Assistance, has her dealing 35% more damage to stun enemies, making it a priority to activate. The support slot is flexible. However, Caesar, Sokaku, and Lucy are likely your best options. Butler Boo or Night Boo provide much needed energy to Corrin and her teammates. Alternatively, Razona Boo, Magnet Boo, and Red Mochas can be used to group up enemies, helping Corrin with her lack of AoE. Once again, ultimately though, it is up to you as the free-to-play player to play however you want. This guide only briefly mentioned DPS characters, but building and investing into other roles is equally viable. Your favorite husbando is a stunner? Or have other character building worries? Like and subscribe and hit the bell, and when we go live playing other Hoyoverse games or Triple Z, we would be happy to answer any of your questions. If streams aren't your thing, comment down below and we will do our best to answer you. Or you can tell us which character is your favorite or who you're waiting for. I would love to know. Thanks, and as always, either follow or guide or someone else's. The most important thing for you is to have fun. Real talk. Now here's the deal. With the release of Miyabi, I am worried for the future of Triple Z. We are still pushing you towards vertical investment, because as we mentioned before, you will feel the gameplay drought unless you horizontally invest. But as a horizontal investor, and with the Miyabi releasing as busted as she is, be on the lookout for Hoyo tuning the game around her power level. If they do, then we are in big trouble, as the slope to becoming a need gacha is a slippery one. And before you know it, Triple Z has become just like Honkai Impact 3rd or Honkai Star Rail. However, I'm having faith that maybe a lot of copium, that hoyoverse and the Triple Z team are doing what they are doing simply to get some extra allowance money, and her being the Void Hunter, etc., power levels, and to finally course correct their game. Triple Z has a lot of love and hard work going into it, especially with how vocal the developers have been about change. As a huge fan, I am wishing them the best, and hoping that the future of this gacha is bright. It's about time we have hopium.
Screw this noise. I'm going back to a real gacha. Like Ray.
We're not sponsored. Show's over, okay? Leave.